We have a short but very important for us little celebration to do, and I am honored and delighted that we have with us the Dean of Boston University's College of Art and Sciences, Dean Virginia Sapiro, who's here with us, and she has agreed to say a few words about what she will tell you it is about.
So I couldn't imagine a more appropriate introduction to a dean that the dean will say a few words about whatever she wants to talk about. So that's good. I rarely get that opportunity. First of all, I want to welcome you yet again. I know you've already been welcomed and you have already been working this morning. I've been picking up a lot of wonderful comments about the morning thus far and about the organization of this workshop conference. We are very, very proud to be able to house the Pardee Center here. I want to thank Adil in particular. He does such a wonderful job of running this organization and of bringing us together and bringing fantastic visitors here, very thoughtful and creative. I have to mention Mr. Fred Pardee and to thank him as well for his generosity and his vision in helping us to realize the goals we have here through the Frederick Pardee Center for the Study of the Longer Range Future. It is a university-wide hub for interdisciplinary research. It's organized across BU, and we involve faculty and students from all parts of the university and people from around the globe. So it's a wonderful opportunity. The center has developed very close research links with the United Nations. It's developed a very highly respected publication program and hosts a very rich calendar of events and activities. And I know that because on a regular basis, I have to hit the delete button knowing that yet again there has been some fantastic event that I can't go to. So thank you for that. I want to acknowledge the collaboration of the BU Global Development Program and the Pardee Center as another example for cross-university collaborations. Last year's conference was also in collaboration with other BU institutes, including the Africa Studies Center. And I want to acknowledge in particular the work of the organizing committee, which includes Adil himself, who you have certainly met, John Simon from the School of Public Health, Kevin Gallagher from International Relations, Geography, and assorted other places, and Dilip Mukherjee from Economics. And so thank you to all of you for doing the work to put together this event. This really, for me, I have to give a little promo for my own college, really highlights the breadth and depth of Boston University and particularly the College of Arts and Sciences research portfolio. And one of the things we're most proud of in the College of Arts and Sciences is that we insist on serving at a crossroads, so an imperialistic crossroads, where on any given day we take as our colleagues anyone else who wants to play. And that is a long tradition of Boston University, that the various colleges and schools work together, and we're very pleased to be able to participate in that. But enough of that. What I really want to be here to do is the thing about which I was supposed to be talking. Recently, the American Economic Review, AER, as it's known affectionately to some of you, which is or probably the leading journal in the discipline of economics, selected the top 20 papers published in the journal's 100-year history. The list itself was compiled by such giants of the field as Ken Arrow, Douglas Bernheim, Martin Feldstein, Daniel McFadden, and a whole host of other very important people. And what we're here to celebrate is that Boston University's Professor John Harris's groundbreaking 1970 paper on migration, unemployment, and development was selected as one of the top 20 papers in AER in the last 100 years. Now, before he gets to talk, I have to embarrass him a little bit. This is a great honor, and it recognizes John's work in economics as among the very best in the field and seminal in its impact on development economics. And I understand from people there was some really good discussion of it this morning. The CAS Department of Economics has been consistently recognized for its high quality in research, and this is one more validation of the strength of our economics department here. And I applaud them. I see them sprinkled all over the place. Bob Margot, I've just done what I'm supposed to do. Professor Harris's knowledge and experience working with international agencies and major foundations, and especially his work in Africa and Asia, has contributed greatly to BU's depth and breadth of scholarship and experience in development issues. As director of the African Studies Center for 12 years, from 1975 to 87, he led what is one of the first interdisciplinary centers to focus on the history, culture, and future of the continent. It is one of the Title VI programs in the country, one of the premier programs on African studies, and on its global significance. So with no more delay, please, will you say a few words to us, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Dean Sapiro, Audio, and lots of friends out here. Obviously, I was surprised and pleased to hear about the selection of this paper that was announced in the February issue of the AER, the Centennial edition. Wanted to go back just a little bit of how did this paper, well, what was it about? Has it had some impact aside from the academic accolades? Indeed, sort of what context did it come out of? And there were several comments this morning that I felt that this may illustrate. One is John Simon talking about the importance of research coming out of policy or being addressed to policy. Second is the issue, the Rockefeller Foundation was absolutely central to this. There's a slight evaluation question that I raised. Rockefeller Foundation had a program working with a number of institutions, universities in developing countries. And the University of East Africa were one of the ones. What they did was provided some visiting faculty for a period of time to develop particularly applied research programs to build institutions that could do policy work. And then particularly the crucial part was the training of nationals, both involvement in the projects and funding them for overseas work. And so I went in 1968, 69 to the University of Nairobi under the Rockefeller program. Was part of the Institute for Development Studies, which was set up as an institution at the university that worked directly with the Ministry of Planning, the Permanent Secretary of Planning, the Governor of the Central Bank, and the university economists. And our job was to try to help policymakers understand some of the options that they had open to them. I just add two of my colleagues who were also junior faculty at MIT at the time, in addition to Mike Todaro, who had come from Yale, were Peter Diamond and Joe Stiglitz. And while you may know them both as Nobel laureates, they also were working on very applied issues. Joe was working on efficiency wage. Peter Diamond was figuring out how to get allocation of airspace for export of cut flowers, et cetera, and appropriate tagging. So there was a group of us working on real issues. Well, when we arrived, one of the big things in post-independent Kenya was there had been this enormous expansion of particularly primary education. There had been a substantial expansion of the public sector. And the whole purpose of independence in some ways was to Africanize this segregated, rigidly separated economy that had been under the British, where basically you had Brits at the top, you had Asians doing the and Africans were the labor force. So there was an enormous expansion of opportunities and also particularly of education. And what the policymakers noted was that large numbers of young people were coming into the urban areas and they weren't all finding employment. So there was the usual issue about young men hanging on street corners. some issues about crime rates. And at the same time, they were trying to do large-scale settlement schemes in the rural areas, and actually there was a labor shortage in the rural areas. So the question was, why is Kenya faced with young people coming to town when they're going to be unemployed? And as usual, if you're going to think about policy, you want to have some idea what's causing it. And there were three popular ideas of what the cause was. The first was the education system had subverted the values so that young Kenyans looked down on agriculture, rural employment, and only aspired to white-collar work to the urban environment. And so the response to that was to do a major reform of the education system so as to bring agricultural training into the primary school curriculum. A second view was that there was misinformation. Young people heard about the streets of gold, and that they therefore came to town thinking there were wonderful opportunities that in fact did not really exist, at least not for all of them, and they were misinformed, so there was an information campaign to say things are tough in the cities, stay home. A third part was a view that indeed that once people came to town they were trapped, and you've all heard the statements. People are migrating to the slums of Nairobi or Rio or wherever else, or to the slums of New York or Boston or elsewhere, in that once they're there, they're then trapped. Even though things are bad, they can't go home. And so that had notion that indeed you ought to round up these people and forcibly send them home and introduce some kind of a pass system so that you could only come to town if you had a job. So we're asked to take a look at, to evaluate those proposals and see what else was involved. So as an economist, you usually start asking, well, how do the people that are involved see this? What kind of choices are they making? What kind of information do they have? What kind of options? And so we did a lot of informal interviewing, again, the whole role of other social sciences of trying to understand institutions. I won't go into, but it's absolutely essential. If you're going to do this, you have to understand the institutional framework. There were issues about individual choices versus extended family choices. There were issues of what were the alternative opportunities. Well, what we found in a fair period of time was that indeed young people coming to town, some of them did in fact get jobs. And indeed, if they did get jobs in this newly Africanizing economy, their real earnings were on the order of about 5 times what they could expect if they were home. So there was a big payoff if you were lucky. We also found that people who were employed were remitting large amounts of money back home. So again, their earnings in the rural areas were substantially higher than their subsistence requirements in the urban area. But most interesting, talking with colleagues and others, you see there was this steady flow of young people coming in and looking for jobs for a period of time. Now we asked, well, what if they're not lucky? What if they don't find one of these good jobs? What happens? Said, you send them home. Well, about what period of time is that? Well, about 6 months. And if you haven't caught on, then you go back home, and there's, of course, a flow of others coming to take their chances. It's a little bit like young actresses going to Los Angeles, right? There's a chance you'll hit it, but there's a big chance that you won't, but you don't necessarily stay waiting tables there forever. That's the point. And indeed, later when we looked at the census data, the gross flows, it was about 6 people in for 5 people out. The notion that the rural and urban were separate, these people were detaching from the rural economy, coming, then stuck in town, not able to go home, was just plain wrong. So we then tried to ask the question, well, how does this appear to people who, given the information they have, are trying to make reasonable decisions? And we ended up with the notion an expected income. That is, you look at what do you get if you get the job, what are the probabilities of getting the job? What affects the probability? The answer is how many other people are looking. So the unemployment rate, et cetera, ends up lowering your chances of hitting a good thing. So we put 2 things together. One was the individual decision that says you look at your chances, and the chances themselves depend in part on the unemployment rate and the wage differentials. And then you have to ask the question, how does this get coordinated? Now, most of the models we had was that wages would automatically adjust and clear the markets, and it was hard to explain unemployment in the standard models that we had to deal with. Well, here there were reasons for wage rigidity that I can't go into now, but that in fact, as more people come in, the unemployment rate rises, you end up then with having a lower chance of winning, and that indeed moderates and attenuates the flow. So there's a kind of an equilibrium position in which the unemployment rate becomes. Okay, so empirically it seemed to hold up quite well. One of the interesting sort of counterintuitive findings here was, given the connectedness of the rural and urban sectors, there were proposals have mass job creation efforts in the towns so as to mop up the unemployed. There they are, let's put them to work. If you do that in the towns, it then draws more in because you've increased the chance of getting the job. Whereas if you do the job creation out in the rural area, that will attenuate the flow. So that's the basic idea, and as I say, empirically it seems to have held up reasonably well, both for rural-urban within countries and also in international migration. So the bottom line is that these migrants are not misinformed people coming and finding themselves trapped in bad situations, but rather they are looking at opportunities. They're willing to gamble or invest. And again, the social networks become important on lowering that cost of exploring the gamble. But indeed, they're motivated for gain. It's not an irrational choice. And that furthermore, these sectors, as you see through remittance flows, as you see through these movements, are not disconnected. And so it seems to have been important for understanding policy, both on wage policies, also employment creation issues, and a number of areas. Kevin was just saying it's been recently incorporated into some World Bank models for evaluating the gains from trade, and that it turns out changing a lot of the evaluation. So that's the basic point of what it was about, what I think we've learned. And migration obviously continues to be an important issue, and the question is how to channel it in ways that indeed people can better achieve the outcomes that they're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, John. Just to say, you know, it's as I said, it's an honor to be able to do this. We do this not simply because we want to bask in the reflected glory of our colleague, which we do, and you know, I know there's lots of practitioners here who sometimes wonder why we who spend time in academia do what we do, and part of it is really to be in the company of people who blow your mind away. And we have all sorts of colleagues all over the time, and in many ways that's what we do at the Pardee Center, to talk about ideas that matter. And this is really what I wanted, one of the other reasons we want to do is for the students in the room, to remind ourselves, and actually for the faculty also, to remind ourselves that ideas matter, and good ideas stay. And in fact, at the end of the day, that's the measure of good ideas. Good ideas are the ideas that stay. I just wanted to acknowledge very briefly, we have the chair of the Department of Economics, Professor Margot, the department that John has been affiliated with for a long, long time. We have Jim McCann from the Center for Africa Studies, which is a center that John led for a long time, and Tim Longman, who couldn't be here, sends you his regards too. So just to let you know, your colleagues are thinking about this. And we also have, and I'll take just a minute to this, if we could get a mic to Ksenia Kinchuk. I hope I said that right, Ksenia. I've never said your last name because I always call you by your first, who is the director of the Humphreys Fellows Program here at Boston University. And John was for a long time the academic advisor for that program, and there are a number of Humphrey Fellows in the room. And I think they have a little presentation to give to John. So maybe, Ksenia, you can read out the letter that has come from the sponsors of the program right there.
Thank you. It's my great privilege to read this letter. You know, John had many hats and still has many hats. So I will read The letter from Dr. Judith Gibson, who is the director of Hubert Humphrey Program at the International Institute of Education, and she did not read this. She didn't write this letter in with Russian accent, but I will read it with this one. Dear Professor Harris, on behalf of the Institute of International Education's Humphrey Fellowship Program, I congratulate you on the recognition you have received from a panel of Nobel laureates for your groundbreaking article on migration, unemployment, and development published in the American Economic Review. To have authored one of the 20 most influential articles in the journal's 100-year history is indeed a high honor. We at IIE especially appreciate your long association with the Humphrey Fellowship Program, which brings mid-career professionals from developing countries to the United States for 1 year of university study and professional development. You have been an integral participant in the program, both as a co-coordinator of the BU Humphrey Program and as a participant on a number of IIE Humphrey selection committees. You also are currently a member of the BU Program's Advisory Board, as well as a speaker for the Humphrey Seminar Series. Dedicated scholars such as you, who take the time to teach, counsel, and interact with Humphrey Fellows, make our fellowship program relevant some years since its inception, 30 years since its inception. As you are rightly being honored today for your scholarly research, may we at IIE add our congratulations and our thanks for your work in nurturing future world leaders through the Humphrey Program. With very best regards, Judith Gibson. And we have 6 future leaders of the world in our audience, so they are very happy to be at this conference and hear new ideas and learn from these very old, great ideas just John offered to everyone. Thank you
very much. Thank you again all. Just a last note, and I promise this will be the last. People often ask what we do at the Pardee Center. The standard answer is we party. But the more serious answer is I say we think. And again, as I said, I think that's the value of what academia and universities do. We think because thought is important. I understand that thought without action is not very useful, but I also realize that action without thought can be actually dangerous. And that's why we are doing what we are doing today, bringing the world of thought and the world of action together. That's what this work was about. Thank you, John, for doing it. Please, everyone, enjoy your coffee. One last round of applause for John and his work.